How to become a badass regardless of your age. Leslie Peterson practices several styles of martial arts and reality-based self-defense system, black belt in Krav Maga, Pentjak Silat, and Kali, under the legendary martial artist, as well as Israeli Special Forces Commander Nir Maman. Violence is pure chaos. You need to be mentally and physically prepared for the chaos. Your willingness dictates how much and far you fight and protect. Do you know your rights in violence? You have to learn to become violent and more violent than your attacker when there's no option for you to peacefully leave a situation. Leslie Peterson is a wonderful, soft-spoken, and such a lovely lady who I've come to know over the last 10, 12 months. She's certainly a bright flower in my life, and I cannot wait for you to learn from her. Enjoy her interview. So the big question is this: why well-being conscious women just like us who want to live a healthy and happy life are constantly feeling vulnerable, like, what if I get attacked? And so many people who teach self-defense are tough men or martial artists who don't seem to understand what women really go through every day. How can we feel safer and be more confident in our personal safety? That is the question, and this channel gives you the answer. My name is KINKO Hamilton, and welcome to Rise Up Against Violence. Hi, ladies. I met this woman. She is amazing. Well, first of all, I love her energy. And she's such a great, awesome, inspirational supporter for women's self-defense. And I met her through the Women's Self-Defense Summit 2020. And she's herself is, I don't know, I mean, I love her style. And she's such a badass as a martial artist as well, and other combat sports. So I can't wait to introduce to you today. Her name is Leslie Peterson, and she's from Eugene, Oregon. She's a co-founder of Grit 6, which is a self-defense system for women. And yes, so without further ado, Leslie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here, and I just love you, KINKO, and everything you're doing. This is amazing. I hope everybody gets on board.
I so appreciate that, because I started this to really, challenge the mainstream self-defense, the men-dominant, men style. There's nothing wrong with that, okay? Well, combat, if it's a combat, like war, you're gonna go armed up, go fight, military base, I have no problem with that. But it's a little bit different from what women experience on a daily basis. And
right.
To unite women, female instructors, coaches, and awesome men who understand that. So great to have you here, Leslie. So let's talk about your background. So tell us how you started your self-defense journey, and perhaps martial arts as well.
So I was a late bloomer into martial arts. I started at 38. And I started, my kids were taking martial arts. I thought it was important for them. And, I saw when I sit through their classes that there was a class they were offering there for self-defense. And I thought, oh, what the heck? I'm here anyway all the time, so I might as well try it. And, I just went to class, and then I went to another class, and I just kept showing up. And then I went to everything they offered. I love it all. I love all of it. So I never would have dreamed 16 years later I'd be a black belt in Krav Maga. I mean, it just wasn't in my realm of a possibility. So I get excited about that for women, especially young women who come to our seminars. They don't know what they don't know. And so to have them see that as a possibility is really exciting for me.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, Leslie, you look absolutely stunning for whatever the age you refer. I mean, I love to know your secrets, first of all. But so you mentioned that you're black belt in Krav Maga. I don't practice Krav Maga. I never have. although I watched many videos and stuff, but why Krav Maga?
I love all the martial arts, but my interest is self-defense, and Krav Maga is really geared towards self-defense. It's not a sport as some of the other traditional martial arts, which is great. And those traditional martial arts can be taught in a way that they're useful for the street. There has to be some adaptations to them. So I really love Krav because, you know, when we're in a fight, you get dumb in stress. Your brain shuts down and you have to rely on gross motor skills. And Krav really teaches very simple to learn skills that you can use without, you know, memorizing these wrist locks or, you know, technical things. Not that that's not of value, but, you know, for being attacked on a street and having to deal with fear, you really need to be operating in gross motor skills. And that's why I love Krav.
That's good to know. And I completely agree with your gross motor skill part. Yeah, I've done all those. I mean, I'm sure you too, right? You have tried so many different martial arts, and in the competition, you prepare your techniques and move and everything. You're so ready. But on the street or in interpersonal relationship, you're just not ready. You just tense up and froze, and perhaps you choke too, right? And you gotta have to deal with your fear and I don't know, everything else. So let's talk about fear management, Leslie, because I understand you teach fear management, correct?
Yes, I mean, my feeling is that women really need to have a plan. And I'm talking about a plan before situational awareness even. And this plan, you know, you have to ask yourself, what is my personal doctrine? What am I willing to do? You know, you don't want to wait until an actual attack to make those decisions, right? You want to have a plan ahead of time. And you also need to, in thinking about that plan of what am I willing to do? Where am I willing to go? How violent am I willing to be? And then you have to, that's got to be in connection with the environment around you and the person who's attacking you. You know, what am I willing to do if my kids are there? What am I willing to do if it's a stranger attacking me versus my domestic partner? You know, I'm not going to probably gouge their eyes out when I love them. You know, that's a different situation. So you really have to get straight with yourself about what you're willing to do. And in that, you have to train and get yourself in situations. And let me just say this is progressive. I wouldn't ever start anybody out, you know, putting them in compromising positions. You don't know what experiences women have had. I wouldn't want to trigger anybody. But over time, you want to build up your resistance, your pressure training, and you have to fight someone who's fighting you back. You have to, I like to progressively train for giving my mind it's like a card catalog. Okay, I'm aging myself there by saying card catalog, but if you have no reference to draw from in violence, you know, you've never been pinned down, you've never been punched in the face. If you train some of those things, you'll have something you can pull from and say, okay, this isn't completely unfamiliar to me, not just mentally, but it's also part of our toolbox, you know, that you can go to. And just getting a comfort level with that, I mean, if that's ever possible, so that when intense fear kicks in, and it is going to be there. I mean, you're not going to ever be without fear. You're never going to be such a badass that fear isn't going to be there. You will at least have something to draw from. And you just have to use that fear to your advantage. And you have to turn that violence around based on your doctrine, you have got to be more violent. Well, that's my doctrine. My doctrine is probably different maybe from other people's doctrine.
Well,
but
let's talk about it. Let's share us what your doctrine and directive.
Fighting is pure chaos, and you have to be prepared mentally and physically for that chaos. And Mike Tyson has a quote, I'm probably not saying it correctly, but it's something like, everybody has a plan till they get hit in the face. Right? And so my doctrine is, I'm a freaking feral cat. I tell women, have you ever picked up a feral cat? Hell no, you don't want to. You don't even want to. So I'm willing to go anywhere that I need to go to survive. I will do anything. Now, it's important to understand your right to violence. I would recommend for women also to, read about it. Read about what are your rights for violence. Asad Mayoub has a really great book out, Deadly Force. And it's good just to know what your rights are. And obviously you want, your goal is to neutralize the threat. You don't want to go beyond that. So when I say I'm willing to do anything and go anywhere, my goal is to neutralize the threat, not to punish.
That's a very good point, Leslie. I want to kind of refer back to the part you mentioned that slow. You want to start slow because you just don't know, what your experience is, or what the participant or your woman's experience is, right? Frankly, I'm assuming we are in the self-defense industry because I had it, and probably you too, but many of us had violent encounters before, and we overcame, or we are still trying to overcome, which is a life journey anyways, but we're trying to do better and share what worked for ourselves, right? To help other women, because how many seconds, like every 3 seconds or 9 seconds, something like that, woman raped, incredible number of women and children abused.
Yes.
So with that being said, Leslie, mainstream self-defense program, I should say, trigger a lot of women. Hence, women don't want to go to those self-defense classes, right? Could you share with us what kind of things are triggering women and what needs to change?
Yeah, I think in particular for women, violence looks different for women, as I said earlier. And that can come from social situations, social demographics, having power over. And I think that how violence is for us is just very different for men. And that's why, I'd like to say that, any woman who survived an attack, whatever you did, that was the right thing. You survived, you did the right thing. So I'm weary of techniques, and a lot of mainstream martial arts are technique based, and you really need to be concept based. Again, because in stress, we dumb down. I think that, starting slowly with women, learning, it's a disservice to women to just teach them a couple techniques in a seminar and send them out, right? I think the best thing I can do if it's just a seminar is to talk about that doctrine ahead of time, talk about situational awareness. Another thing that I think we need to flip with maybe a male instructor, and let me just say, I know a lot of really good male instructors, but it's this philosophy that, I'll often hear, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, and don't go here, and don't. And instead of flipping that script to, you know, here's how you can do it and live your life. And it just sort of shifts that, not the blame, but shifts the onus on who really the predator is. And that this is hard to explain because there's the reality, right? There's the reality of violence, and it's going to be there no matter how much we say, well, we should be able to do this and that. It's still going to be there. But I want women to live their life and have tools to be able to do the things they want to do and understand the level of threat goes up in certain situations. So.
Yeah, it's very interesting, Leslie. I started this channel and weekly publish a new episode, a new interview, and also I teach self-defense as well. So I post stuff on Instagram, and it's very interesting because all women are like, wow, that's great information. Thank you. Or I'm going to try this and that, right? And it's so interesting, Leslie, the negative comments that I get are from men and who are fighters or martial artist studio owner, martial artist dojo owner. And one of the comments, actually, let me share with you 2 comments. The one that I got from, well, women are getting more support than ever before. And well, female, no, he said female is getting more support than ever before. And if something happens to her, it's just because she wanted it. Okay, that came from martial arts dojo owner. And another guy who's like a pro fighter, MMA fighter or whatever, he said, well, that doesn't work because this and that, right? So I said, bro, I'm not talking about fight. I'm talking about self-defense. They understand, fight, combat, self-defense are completely different. You're preparing yourself to get in a cage and fight. In a self-defense, we don't prepare for it. We just find ourselves to be in a situation if you did screw it up and self-awareness, situational awareness, all that, right? So anyways, so it's kind of like a daily discussion that I have to do with those guys, and I just stopped responding it.
Yeah, it's not in context, and it's not part of this conversation that women need to have.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is an MMA fighter, well, he's got some rules that he operates in. You can't.
Thank you. Exactly.
You can't. You're in a padded room. It just, they're not dealing with. They're prepared ahead of time. They may have fear when they're fighting, but at least they're prepared. This is happening. They know the time, place, and method of what is going to happen. Women don't always have that when they're attacked. The attacker controls the time, place, and method. And
exactly.
That
controls it.
Yes. And we are dealing with, something happens to women. It's called tonic immobility. And it's a temporary state of motor inhibition believed to be brought on by intense fear. And I feel bad when I hear women say, oh, I should have, why didn't I? I knew, they don't understand you actually have this physiological response to intense fear. Well, that's not part of what's typically taught in a self-defense class or, even Krav Maga, traditional martial arts. So we're having to deal with some physiological, mental things that just aren't as fun as in class, honestly. People want to come in and kick and hit and punch and, do this. And so
Leslie, what do you think we should change? We have to do to make a change and be the change to really help a woman to be empowered and, feel safer and actually just live safely and happily without, like, I was talking to, Jessica Tierney.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So I was talking to Jessica, and she said that, it's very interesting, KINKO, because when a woman goes to a blind date, right? Or what a man goes to blind date, all he thinks about is, it's just going to be hot, it's just going to be like fat, hot, right? What women think about is, like, we're going to tell everybody what we're going to where you're going, who you're gonna be with, which we don't know, but which restaurant or which bar, whatever, right? And I call you this time, or like we kind of assume the safety net and the safety level. We just make sure we have that, while men don't. I don't know why I talked about that, but I mean that's how much different the violence to women compared to men, because men's like at the bottom, like, hey, you, I don't know, touch me, or you grab my girlfriend's whatever, then, boom. I mean, that it doesn't happen like that.
Yeah, that's right. And KINKO, right there, that's exactly why women need to be having these conversations, and why what you're doing gives a platform to talk about this stuff. It's just so important. Our experience with violence, our experience with just operating in the world as women. I do especially for the middle school, if I do a training for middle school girls, I just start with, I'll do a side by side, and I'll ask them, tell me what an expectation is of you as a girl. And then I'll say, tell me what expectations are for boys. And it becomes very clear how we're groomed, programmed, trained to all the things we already know, right? Be kind, be understanding. Don't, hey, what's wrong with you? Why are you so bitchy? Or, that kind of thing. And while boys are more socially trained to be aggressive and that kind of thing. So we really need to look at just how we're bringing up our girls and what messages we're giving them.
Let's see, in your grade 6, the self-defense system for women, what women learn from your program? So your focuses are situational awareness, right? And resistance, pressure testing, training, and fear management. Who do you serve, and what a woman learn from this program and get out of it?
So we do all kinds of different programs for women. So we'll teach young women, young girls under 10. We'll teach middle school, high school, women that are going into college. We'll do a mother-daughter just to appease the moms. They're scared for their daughters to go out. And it opens up a good conversation for the moms to prepare them to go out into the world. I really try to, again, put an emphasis on the reality of what's going to work for women. When I train with different people and I think, yeah, that's not going to work for me. I'm 5'4", $125, that isn't going to work for me. And I really try to study what works for women. Leverage. Women have to understand leverage. I say, don't train to fight. Don't train to inflict pain. You have to train to do damage. So I kind of take the focus off of going around just hitting whatever into where are those points that I'm going to damage them, because I have to do that to get power over. And
exactly.
I just think that's really important distinction, especially for women. And again, to get them to train, pressure test everything. You have to test it. That's a concept from my beloved Burton Richardson, which is you have to be committed to the truth for you and what is going to work for you, and you have to test it. You can't just say, wow, that looked cool, or okay, that all right, so I do this move and that's going to work for me. Let yourself be in a situation with a trusted someone you trust to go to these places. And again, like you were saying earlier, some women have life experience that they're not very comfortable to just lay on the ground and have some guy on top of them and say, okay, how are you going to get out of this?
Yes, absolutely. And Burton Richardson, he's fantastic. He was one of the speakers at the summit last year.
Yes, he was. And his gorgeous wife, who's amazing.
Yes, Sarah as well. Yes, absolutely. If you haven't watched this summit, join us. Please join us. The information is down below. But, Leslie, I really appreciate what you said, like what works for you. I'm interpreting this, but there's no one fit all for self-defense, right? Like Burton said, you have to commit to your truth. What works for you, just and hone into that, like sharpen that what works for you. I think that's what's missing from today's self-defense mainstream program industry, because they teach even, I don't know, I'm not going to say the name, but famous grand technique company will say, if you're a pin like this, move your, use the back muscle and then bring hands like this and flip him over. I'm like, let me tell you something. I've tried that technique by believing, okay, this is the only, because I was told this is the only way to get out of the pain, right? Oh my gosh. My husband is 210, like, I don't know, 215, 220 pounds, 6'4", I'm 5'4", 110 pounds, right? No matter how many times I tried to move my arms, I almost broke my fist by trying to do it. And imagine you're doing that in the woods or street or even as a garage, or, there's no comfortable mat, right? And right. I think we have to acknowledge that what works for me may not work for you.
Yeah, exactly. One more thing I wanted to say too, giving credit back to Burton, is that I've learned through Krav, we have gun disarms, knife disarms, stick, all kinds of different things. But really, I teach this to the men as well, is that you have to have an eye for a weapon. And again, you don't get that in sports-based self-defense. So you have to, I just, everybody assume there's a weapon, maybe two. And that's a whole skill set in itself. So another thing to.
Absolutely. So you have Burton Richardson as your coach. And
he's someone I respect so much. I have several people, my personal Sifu, George Snodgrass. I train with different people that I've gotten experience from different people.
But that's why you expect weapons. Yes. That's why, that's how my Sifu and, we have kind of shared the same world there. How we taught is we expect weapon first. That's why we do what we do and how we move, or how, right? This is how all things, whereas mainstream self-defense is pound to pound, hand to hand, force to force, like I'll choke you, you know what I mean? Like, this is how you get out. I'm like, no, like.
That's right. Their force and your force aren't the same. I think it's important for women to get experience from different people. If you ever find a trainer that tells you this is the only way, this is the way, be suspicious. Reach out to you, KINKO. Everybody reach out to KINKO. She'll send you in the right direction. We need to support each other, and you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Come to trusted women who have maybe been to some places that you can skip, and get those concepts down. Get the concepts.
Absolutely. I absolutely love what you said. Get training from different people, because there's no, my Sifu said, I cannot teach you everything because I don't know everything. Right. You go out there and learn what you love, what you resonate with, and you create your own style and what works for you. So with that being said, Leslie, before we wrap up, I want to ask you, what do you think is wrong with women's self-defense industry that we have to change?
I would say we have to spend more time looking at the psychology of what it really means to be in a violent situation for women, the mental acuity that you have for it, the planning ahead of time, the making decisions ahead of time, situational awareness. I say that for women that maybe aren't going to pursue it over, like me, I love it so much. It's my life path. But some women aren't going to do that. So really situational awareness and concepts rather than techniques. And a lot of schools just want to focus on the techniques. I keep repeating myself on that, but I hope it's driving home.
No, because that's so important, right? And that's what's missing.
Yes.
Awesome, Leslie. So before we wrap up, is there any last words or words of wisdom you'd like to share with the audience?
I want women to know that this training can be fun. You want to train seriously, but not seriously train. I mean, does that make sense? It's you want to have fun doing it. I don't want to scare the hell out of women when they come to my class. I don't want them to be like, I know it all and you better figure it out. I want them to feel comfortable. I want to meet them wherever they're at with who they are, even any of their civil rights, even that, I want them to be supported, and I want them to have a good time, and they'll get the training.
Absolutely, Leslie. Even though I said that was the last question, I want to ask you one more question because you said you teach kids under 10 years old, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Could you elaborate on what you teach to those young kids? Because I think it's so important, like critical, in fact, for them to learn self-defense.
Obviously, it's a completely different conversation that I'm going to be having with, a 20-year-old woman, a 40-year-old woman, and a 10-year-old. One thing that we do is we do a lot of posing role play situations for them, and we'll ask them questions that are age appropriate, but teaches them boundaries. And boundaries, boy, I wish I would have learned boundaries at 10 instead of 40. So we really emphasize boundary setting. And that can be boundaries, we'll say, what would you do if you were at the mall with friends and they wanted you saw some other friends and they wanted you to go in the car with them, but you knew your parents wouldn't, that wouldn't be okay with your parents. What would you do? We talk about different ways that you're manipulated and we give them they need the context to have something to say back. So we practice, what could you say if you're posed with anything you're not comfortable with? And that may even be with, your friends. There's a lot of bullying that goes on. So their conversation is different. But I think if you can start boundary setting young, that is going to serve you your whole life.
Awesome. We have a lot of women and mothers watching this, so that's been wonderful. And Leslie, it's been a pleasure and so much fun, and it's so good.
Oh my gosh, KINKO, I just love you. I just want to support you in every way. Your rise up against violence is amazing. So everybody, here's an excellent resource for you.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. And I talk to you soon, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
All right, thank you so much.
Would you like to get the advices from the world's top self-defense experts? If so, go and get your pass from www.womensselfdefensesummit.com.